Well, there's another angle to silver in the markets, and that is coming up very soon that I alluded to before, but I basically went over it kind of quick. And that's going to be a debt ceiling smash up. Basically, the parties are going to fight, the Democratic parties and the Republican parties are going to fight over the debt ceiling being raised over the budgets, and the budgets are coming up. They're going to have to iron this out again. Now, in 2011, that was one of the problems. Why gold? Well, it wasn't a problem for gold. It was a problem for the actual markets in oil. But we don't even know if there's other factors that are going on with oil right now. But that is why the markets tanked a lot in August of 2011. There was a lot of fights over, well, it was also the downgrade of the debt. But if they can't iron out a budget, and I think this is coming up again, this has been talked about, I guess, for about almost 2 years. But it comes up every so often, and it does affect the price of gold and silver, and it affects the markets in general. It's reality. It's not something that's like a theory. It is reality. It seems when it's out of the news, then, it's like none of the markets are affected. Gold's not affected. Silver's not affected. But the reality is it's always there. And every time they're making these decisions on the budgets, it's going to affect. And see, I think it's going to come back in the news again. Because we got another fiscal year coming up. They're going to have to iron out the budgets again. They're talking about, last year, at the end of the year, what was going to happen with the budgets. And, a couple years ago, they downgraded the debt. The S&P downgraded the U.S. debt to AA from AAA. And there's been more threats lately, later on after that about Moody's doing the same thing. And they said they're not playing games anymore. So, out of left field, something could come out that could actually drive your metals up. And it's fairly unpredictable because, if some event came about that led to another event that led to something where they're going to downgrade the debt, or something, or Moody's going to issue a statement, gold and silver will start flying up again. That's just how it is. And that's really why you have it in the first place, because the government's not going to be able to sustain the debt it has right now. It's ridiculous. It's unsustainable. They can't ever raise interest rates because the government debt is unsustainable. So the more they borrow, they got to keep the interest low, or it'll also eat up the entire budget. It is going to go bust at one point in time, and it's not going to take 10 years or 5 years. It's going to take a lot less than that, just doing the math, because if you extrapolate further, it's like we're on a high hyperbolic curve as far as debt goes, and it's not just us, it's across the globe. And it looks like it's a plan. There's going to be a reset of currencies and everything else. So that is why you're keeping gold and silver and not keeping too much of the fiat paper. Temporarily, maybe 2013, actually that was said in the beginning of the year, this would be the year for deflation. But it doesn't seem like deflation could possibly last because they keep going into more and more debt. They keep printing, it's in other words, they're not printing money and putting it into the American economy per se, but they are printing money. Their balance sheets are getting bigger and bigger on the largest banks and also the Federal Reserve. And now, how are they going to unwind those balance sheets? Are they going to stay on? Are they just going to keep playing this game? The balance sheets can only go so high before they have to go out into the American economy. In other words, the banks are taking treasury notes in exchange for them giving up their troubled assets, which are going on the Federal Reserve's bank balance sheet, their balance sheets. Well, these banks that have all these treasuries, it's like keeps building up, it keeps building up, it keeps building up. Eventually, they're going to want to spend it. It's almost like if you were shoveling fiat notes into a wall someplace, and the thing is just piling up, piling up, piling up, like Scrooge McDuck would have done back in the cartoon, except it's fiat notes. Well, at one point in time, you're going to say, we need to invest this money, we need to spend this money. And that's really what happens. This is a classic example. I I want to ad lib a little bit on Iran because I know about the Western banksters or the evil people and all this type of stuff. I'm going to state, though, I think the Iranian regime is bad news. They're not getting a nuclear bomb for just defense. I don't think so. They're shrewd players. They're not going to offensively just go right out there in the open and try to attack the United States or something like that. But, you don't know what that means because there's other implications behind them getting a bomb, which means the Sunni nations will have to have the bomb. And a nuclear arms race in that area is not good. It's definitely not good. That's what it looks like, too. So, when people talk about is, if I, and I know hopefully that, when people do understand that Iran is trying to get a bomb, they're not just making this energy for peaceful purposes. They've been doing this in lieu of them having a 100-year supply of natural gas, decades and decades of crude oil. The type of energy they use could be better put to use using thorium nuclear reactors, which is in India. They don't have much uranium, but one of their major trading partners, India, has one of the largest thorium reserves, which doesn't make the plutonium for the bombs. So they're getting a bomb, but is it a threat to the United States directly? No, but is it a threat to peace and stability in the region? Yes. Oh, without a doubt. And you could say Iran has never attacked any of its enemies or his neighbors in 200 years. The thing is, one reason I look at it in common sense perspective is if they're getting all these sanctions and they have to also, besides the cost of all the sanctions, which is crushing your economy, they have to actually put this bomb making underground, which is very, very expensive. It's like if they wanted to have more defense in their military, if they spent that money elsewhere, I think they probably would have done better. But hell no, they want that bomb because once they get one, they can make a whole pile of them. And it looks like that will lead to a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Saudi would want one. Bahrain would want one. You know what I mean? Egypt would want one. It was just the whole thing. It wouldn't take nothing if one have to go off someplace by somebody, and that's it. The whole deal is done. So that affects global stability in a lot of ways. So, you can say the Western banksters are evil, but I got to agree that there's a logic to that. And if Iran wanted to really stick it to the Western banksters, they would grow industrial hemp. But they want to be on top. They want the game where they run, in conjunction with Russia. They have a good slice of the world oil-backed reserve currency. That's their dream. So, they'll do the same thing the banksters will do times 10. There's no difference in their character, in their human nature. So I'm going to point that out. But basically, that situation, I think, is, in the Middle East, with the attack on Iran or something happens, that is really going to be the catalyst that's going to drive the metals and oil way the hell up. I don't know when this is going to be, because it looks like Barack Obama is totally against that, and Valerie Jarrett, So it's anybody's guess when it could possibly be. It's been, even the best intelligence doesn't know when it's going to be. I remember back when they said Kim Il-sung died, they were sure by all the intelligence in the military that there was going to be an attack from the North Korea to the South Korea, and it didn't happen. They were flying up M1 Abrams tanks one at a time in C5 Galaxy planes. You put one tank in one C5 Galaxy, one at a time, because they expected an attack. So even the best minds that try to predict honestly when something is going to happen in Iran, nobody freaking knows. But when it does, and it does look like it's coming sometime, that's when your metals are going to rise. But I want people to understand that, you know, they're going to be like all anti-Western. The West did it. The banksters, elite. No, not exactly, man. Because the elite in Iran are probably far worse. They really are. And it's not like so stupid. They're not so stupid as they couldn't deliver a missile to the United States. You know, they couldn't deliver one here. But once they have one, Egypt's got to have one, Saudi's got to have one, you know, Bahrain's got to have one. You know the deal. Everybody's going to have one. And then if one thing goes off someplace, they use them. Because nobody freaking goes through so many sanctions, putting stuff underground and doing all this work and taking, you know, all this heat for something they're just going to never, ever, ever use. They will use them. And if one uses them, they all use them. So imagine the situation if the Middle East went up in nuclear flames. That is why the policy should be against Iran getting these weapons. Because of the area it's in more than anything. You know? North Korea has weapons. They're a backward economic thimble in, you know, if North Korea fell apart or North Korea decided to go, you know, it would affect South Korea. But, you know, North Korea is no economic powerhouse that has the oil and stuff that feeds the rest of the world. You know, Iran's oil feeds China too. It would just upset everything all the way around. So it's dangerous. But Iran would probably, if they had a weapon, it would be with Saudi, and the whole thing would be a mess. It's not because oil is for the West, just per se, but it would screw up everything across the board. And you know, the big winner of this would be Russia. Probably Russia, because they'd be out of the area, basically, and their oil would be worth that much more. They could sell it to Europe for that much more, sell it to Japan for that much more. The price of oil and natural gas would go astronomically high. But, you know, I don't know what Barack Hussein Obama's freaking policies are. You know, it should have been taken care of a long time ago, because I think the longer you wait, the longer, the higher the cost is, and the more dangerous it is for our own military. It's like you want to hit them off balance. You don't want to wait forever. It's not good. So, anyway, do expect the unexpected, and what's coming up, I think, in August, which is right around the corner, a couple weeks from now. They're going to be talking about the budgets again, and there's going to be a major, you know, accident fighting between Democrats and Republicans about the debt ceiling, about what's going to happen, and that's going to be bullish for gold. I'll guarantee you that, and not good for the markets. So that's something else to keep in mind. Common sense goes a long, long way. Keeping things simple, because you can see the big picture, and the big picture is on the side of gold and silver.